Rain poured relentlessly over the cracked streets, puddles reflecting the dim light of the flickering street lamps. A young woman, soaked to the bone, stood trembling at the edge of the park. Her thin coat did little to protect her from the cold, and her bare hands clutched a small, worn-out bag. Every so often she looked around, hoping for someone, anyone, to offer a kind glance, a helping hand. She had nowhere to go. Her life had been a series of misfortunes, each worse than the last, each leaving a scar on her heart. She had once dreamed of a life filled with love, warmth, and security, but fate had stripped her of every illusion. Betrayed by those she trusted, abandoned by family, and left with nothing but despair, she wandered the streets like a ghost. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but more than that, loneliness clawed at her soul. The world seemed to have forgotten her entirely. On this night, a single man with a little girl walked by, her laughter echoing faintly under the drizzle. He carried her on his shoulder, shielding her from the rain with a large umbrella. The man's face was tired, etched with lines of responsibility and loss, a man who had loved and lost in ways too painful to speak of. Yet despite his own grief, he moved with purpose, a father determined to protect the innocence of his child. The woman's eyes followed them. There was a strange warmth in her chest as she saw the father and daughter, a flicker of longing she hadn't felt in years. She wanted nothing more than a sign of kindness, a moment of human connection. Mustering the last bit of courage, she stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can you give me a hug, please?" The man froze. He didn't know this woman. She was a stranger, drenched and shivering, standing on the edge of his path. A part of him wanted to look away, to continue on his way and not risk getting involved. But then he noticed her eyes so raw, so broken, yet carrying an almost imperceptible glimmer of hope. He felt an inexplicable pull, a tug on his heart he hadn't felt in years. He hesitated. The little girl clung to his hand, sensing her father's uncertainty. "Daddy?" she asked softly, tilting her head. The man looked down at her, her innocent eyes silently urging him to make the right choice. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he knelt down and opened his arms. "Come here," he said gently. The woman stepped forward, trembling, and collapsed into his embrace. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt warmth, not just physical warmth, but a sense of belonging, of being seen. Tears streamed down her face as she clung to him. The man held her tightly, unsure why he felt the same ache in his chest, a mix of sorrow and tenderness, but he didn't pull away. Minutes passed like hours. Neither spoke. The rain continued its relentless assault, but within that hug, the world felt still. She whispered between sobs, "No one has ever cared. No one has ever hugged me like this." The man's heart cracked. Memories of his own losses flooded back. The wife he had lost, the life he had tried to rebuild for his daughter, the endless nights of emptiness. He realized that in comforting her, he was also confronting his own grief. A silent understanding passed between them. They were broken, but maybe, together, they could find a fragment of solace. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared across the street, watching them. The woman stiffened. Fear crept into her heart. She barely noticed as the man instinctively pulled her closer, shielding her from the world. The figure moved closer and a chill ran down her spine. Something about him felt dangerous. She looked up at the man, her eyes wide with panic. "Stay behind me," he whispered, protective and commanding. The man didn't know this person, but he felt a pulse of danger, a sinister intent in the stranger's eyes. The figure approached with slow, deliberate steps, a smirk on his face. The woman tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She realized this could be the moment where her fragile hope was shattered forever. Before she could react, the stranger lunged forward, aiming for her. The man acted without thinking, pushing her behind him. The impact sent him sprawling, the umbrella flying out of his hand. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into an alley, the stranger's curses echoing behind them. They ran blindly, hearts pounding, adrenaline drowning out everything else. Finally, they collapsed against a wall, gasping for breath. The woman clutched him tightly and he held her, feeling her trembling. The danger had passed for now, but the terror lingered. She looked up at him with eyes full of gratitude and something deeper, something fragile and urgent. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, I didn't save you. We saved each other." The next morning the city was quiet, as if holding its breath. The woman woke up on a park bench, her hair still damp, her body aching, but her heart felt strangely lighter. She wasn't alone. The man sat nearby, sipping a coffee from a paper cup, his eyes scanning the streets, wary and alert. The little girl was asleep beside him, curled up with a small blanket. "I didn't mean to intrude," the woman said quietly, unsure how to navigate this strange new bond. "You didn't intrude," he replied. His voice was calm but carried weight, a subtle insistence that she understood the gravity of what had happened. "You just needed help." She looked down, ashamed. I'm nothing. I have nothing. I'm just a burden." He shook his head, a flicker of anger crossing his face. "Don't you dare call yourself a burden. You survived last night when many wouldn't. That counts for something." Tears welled up again, but this time not from fear. She felt seen, acknowledged, validated. Her voice trembled. "I don't know why." "Why you care?" He sighed, a long, weary exhale. "Maybe because I see myself in you. I've lost so much and I can't fix the world. But I can fix this moment. I can protect you while I can." Days turned into weeks, and the woman found herself returning to the park each day, drawn by a strange magnetism. She learned his routine, how he juggled work and fatherhood, how he never stopped caring, despite the weight on his shoulders. She became part of their fragile world, helping in small ways, sharing food, offering warmth. Yet beneath this fragile connection, danger still lurked. The shadowy figure from that night hadn't disappeared. One evening, as the woman walked home from the park, she noticed him following her. Panic surged. She ran, heart hammering, adrenaline sharp and merciless. She didn't get far before she stumbled, and he caught up. His hand was cold, rough, unyielding. "You think you can hide from me?" he hissed. Just as fear threatened to consume her, a familiar figure appeared, a man running at full speed, eyes wild, hands ready to strike. He tackled the stranger to the ground, pinning him with unrelenting force. The woman fell to her knees, trembling, tears streaking her face. The man looked down at her, expression fierce yet tender. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "No, I'm okay." "You saved me," she choked out. He stood slowly, keeping his eyes on the defeated figure. "I told you. We save each other. Remember that." From that moment, something shifted between them. Fear had been replaced with trust, loneliness replaced with connection, despair replaced with hope. They didn't need grand declarations or promises. Every hug, every shared glance, every silent understanding became their lifeline. Months passed, and the woman found stability she had never known. The man's daughter adored her, treating her as a guardian angel she had prayed for. The man himself grew quieter, more introspective but stronger, buoyed by the fragile but unwavering presence of the woman in his life. One night, as the rain fell softly against the window, she whispered again, her voice trembling but steady, "Can you give me a hug, please?" He smiled, a rare, genuine smile, and pulled her close. This time, no fear, no hesitation, only the warmth of mutual understanding, of lives intertwined by tragedy, survival, and unexpected love. Tears fell, but they were no longer tears of despair. They were tears of relief, gratitude, and unspoken promises. And in that embrace, they both knew the world could break them, could test them, could threaten them, but it could never take away the bond forged in that first, desperate hug, a bond that had saved them both. Weeks later, a chilling letter arrived, slipped under the door of their small apartment. The handwriting was jagged, threatening. "You think you're safe? You belong to me." The woman froze, clutching at her heart hammering. The man appeared beside her instantly, reading it and his jaw tightening. "We need to end this tonight," he said, voice low but resolute. That night they returned to the park, their refuge turned trap. Shadows stretched across the empty benches, the wind carrying whispers that made her shiver. Suddenly the shadowy figure appeared again, this time armed, his eyes wild with obsession. He lunged. The man reacted faster than she could blink. In a blur, he grabbed a branch from a nearby tree and struck, disarming the intruder. The woman screamed, but the man's grip never faltered. Protective, fierce, unrelenting. The intruder scrambled, but the man's daughter, sensing danger, called for help, and nearby neighbors flooded the park, surrounding the attacker. The police arrived minutes later. The intruder was arrested, leaving them standing in the rain, trembling but alive. The woman looked up at him, soaked, hair plastered to her face, eyes wide.
"You saved me."
"Again," she whispered. He shook his head, pulling her close. "We save each other, always." In the days that followed, a fragile peace settled over them. The woman finally found work, stability, and a sense of belonging she hadn't dared to hope for. The man's daughter laughed more freely, the warmth of their newfound family filling the spaces that grief had hollowed. One evening, as the sun set in fiery hues over the city, she leaned against him, whispering softly, "I don't know what I would have done without you." He smiled, holding her close. "You don't have to imagine that anymore. You'll never be alone." And in that embrace, soaked in the golden light, tears fell, tears of survival, tears of trust, tears of the shocking realization that love can grow even in the ruins of despair. They had faced fear, loss, and the darkness of human cruelty, yet they emerged unbroken, bound together by a hug that had started it all. The world outside could rage, but inside, they had found something unshakable: hope, safety, and a love born from the most unexpected of beginnings.